Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We begin with football. In keeping with the best traditions of football, transfer deadline day, Europe's top clubs have been busy on this Monday trying to get new players in and ship unwanted ones out ahead of today's closure of the trading window. Arsenal paid the £45 million buyout clause to take Ghanaian midfielder Thomas Partey from Atletico Madrid. Meanwhile, Manchester United took Brazilian left-back Alex Telles from Porto for £15 million and free agent Edinson Cavani on a one-year deal. The Red Devils also spent £27.5 million to sign 18-year-old winger Amad Diallo from Atalanta. The Ivorian is set to join the Red Devils in January. To talk about these and many other moves today is our European correspondent, Simon Evans. Simon, welcome.
Hi, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Simon, and I hope all is well with you. So I'm going to start with Manchester United after that performance over the weekend. Edinson Cavani, what do you think about his addition to the team and what does he bring to this Manchester United squad? Good move?
Well, it's a move that does look a little bit of a desperation move, coming on the final day of the transfer window. A player who's been a free agent all through the summer, who United could have signed at any time and integrated into the team. We know, of course, they were chasing after Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund, but weren't prepared to pay the 120 million euros that Dortmund wanted. So he's not the first choice solution, and it does look a little bit of a makeshift move. But on the other hand, he's a player who says he's fit and ready to go. There's no big transfer fee involved. He's a free agent, and he's experienced and he's scored goals. They've got a very young attack, United, with Rashford, Greenwood and Martial. So having an experienced striker in there as an option is probably not a bad thing to have, but it's not really what United fans were hoping for this window.
Definitely, and as you say, they have a lot of young players. A young signing today, Alex Telles. What does he bring to this Manchester United squad, and how does he make the team competitive?
Yeah, I mean, left-back is an area that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had identified that he wanted to strengthen. Telles, we know about him from his time at Porto. He's very aggressive attacking fullback, question marks perhaps over his defensive side of his game. But, that's the way it's going a little bit with fullbacks in the modern game, isn't it? Everyone wants them to be like Liverpool's pair, attacking down the wing all the time and whipping in crosses, and he can do that. So he looks a decent signing. He's a good addition there.
Simon, we looked at that you just referred to the fact that all summer, someone like Cavani had been available on the free transfer. Some clubs are a lot busier on the final day than others. What does today tell you about teams like Liverpool and Manchester City and their relative quietness today regarding transfers and how settled they may be against some of these transfers that happen today with clubs that are trying to fit their squads up?
Yeah, I think it looks good for them. I think when you make your signings in time, you have your pre-season together, you start to create your team before the first game of the season. I think that's a sign of a well-organised football club that know what they were doing. Liverpool went out and made their signings. Manchester City went out and made their signings. And Manchester United are scurrying around in the last 24 hours, desperately trying to add to their squad. So, that tells you about the relative merits of the organisations, really.
Yeah, and when you look at the troubles that, let's say, Man United fell into in the past 24 hours, how do you feel about what faces Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the moment? Because you know how things are and the fans are and the pressure is on to the former superstar as a player, but still hasn't yet consolidated his position as the team strategist.
Yeah, I think there's two ways of looking at the situation at United. One is to look at Solskjaer and say, well, is he making the most of what he's got? Is he doing the best job he could do with the players that he got? And money has been spent. Wan-Bissaka costs money, Harry Maguire costs money, Bruno Fernandes costs 60-odd million. So, that money has been spent. And you can say that, his selections are questionable. Was it the right decision to play Eric Bailly in that game? It certainly didn't look like it by the time United came off the field. So there are questions. He's still, the jury is out on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, definitely. On the other hand, you could argue he's being set up for failure. He's gone out there and asked for specific players who were affordable and achievable signings for Manchester United. You look at the teenager Haaland, the Norwegian, who knew Solskjaer personally, wanted to come and sign for Manchester United and ends up signing for Dortmund. Something's going wrong at Manchester United, and Patrice Evra was pointing it out recently that, you know, they send lawyers in when other people send football people in. So things aren't working well, and it's hard to put all the blame entirely on Solskjaer's shoulders. But, you know, I hate to be even-handed and balanced about it, but there's certainly questions could be asked about his coaching as well.
Yeah, well, Maguire had left the World Cup in 2018 with his stocks high. I think when he was purchased at 80 million for Man United, not many people were, it wasn't a move that was questioned really, but his performances have left a lot to be desired, and we're seeing Smalling going to AS Roma now on loan at a time, not that Smalling, you know, has been, you know, a tower of strength in the midfield, but defensively he has been a Man United man, but he now goes to AS Roma at a time when a lot of people are dissatisfied with Maguire's performance.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think Smalling would have been the solution personally. I think he had his time at the club, and I think they've done the right thing by letting him go. But there really is concern about Maguire's performances this season. You know, you wonder if his head is fully focused. They were hoping that he was going to be the leader of this team, the organizer of this defence. And I was at Old Trafford yesterday. It was just slapstick defending. It really was terrible, and he doesn't look to really be focused. I don't know if he's been impacted by what happened, the incident in Greece on his holidays where he got in trouble with the police and still has a suspended sentence hanging over him, when maybe if he'd have just apologised, he could have moved on for that one quickly. But, you know, he's a nice guy, he's Harry with him, and the sooner he gets his focus back, the better for Manchester United.
Yeah, I was delaying buying some time, Simon, to look at what they were saying about Thomas Partey, the Gunners. Understand that move is all but done. Why does Arteta want the Ghanaian in his midfield?
Well, I think, you know, he's a player who can give them that bit of steel in midfield that Arsenal really have lacked for several years now, I would say, in that midfield. They'd hoped that Ferreira was going to provide that, and he couldn't do it consistently. He's apparently heading in the opposite direction to Atletico Madrid. But Thomas Partey, I saw him play against Liverpool for Atletico Madrid at Anfield when the Spanish side won that game and knocked Liverpool out of the Champions League. And he ran the midfield that night, and that's not an easy place to go to and take control of a midfield. So he's also had questions about his consistency. When you talk to people in Spain, there's absolutely no doubt about his ability. He's a great ball winner and distributor of the ball in midfield. And he should be the kind of player who brings the best out of the more creative players around him. He's not a playmaker. He's not a pure destroyer, but he's somebody who will get in there and organise that midfield. But will he be able to do it consistently in the Premier League? That's always the big question. They're spending 45 million on him. It seems quite a lot of money for a 27-year-old midfielder, but it would be worth it if he can give Arsenal that steel that they've lacked.
Yeah, Everton. We understand they were in the market for a goalkeeper, wanted Sergio Romero. Can't understand why, well, I can understand why Manchester United didn't let the Argentine go, but they've taken a central defender. On the strength of what Carlo Ancelotti has done in this transfer window, and we've seen the evidence of that in the early season form of Everton, does he really need anybody else? You expect him to squeeze anything else through before the window closes in about an hour and 13 minutes from now?
No, possibly a backup goalkeeper, because there are concerns about Pickford. I don't think, from what I understand, that Ancelotti wants to replace Pickford, but I think he wants to have a greater competition for the number one spot to get Pickford on his toes with a good number two behind him. Romero's wife was on Twitter actually just complaining that United hadn't let him go and saying he deserved the chance to leave the club, but United want some money for him, and so that one's proved a little bit difficult to do. Still time for it to happen. We've got another 15 minutes or so before the window closes. But I think, you know, Ben Godfrey coming in, the central defender, they needed another quality defensive option. He looked pretty good last year for Norwich City, but Everton's work was done. We were talking earlier there with Lance about teams that were organised in the transfer market, got business done early. Ancelotti knew what players he wanted this summer, and he got them, and they've worked out fantastic. First game of the season, it's always a really good sign when the new signings are actually in the starting lineup. And they went out there straight away with Alan Dakore and James Rodriguez in the side. and they've really hit the ground running as a result of that. That just shows if you get your business done properly, get your pre-season done right, you can really get going at the start of a season.
Yeah, just so I get my calculations right, I said to you an hour and change before the transfer window closed. You said only about 15 minutes, so it's about 15 minutes?
It's about 11 minutes now, yeah.
There you
11
go.
o'clock UK time. Yeah.
There you go. All right, good. I'm happy you clarified that. I know that there's a player I saw in the French Ligue 1 last season, played for Rennes, Raphinha, and I know that Marcelo Bielsa has spent 17 million to take him from Rennes to Leeds. Why would he want a player of that profile, you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's a manager, is Bielsa, who, when he sits down to talk to a club, he makes it very clear that he's going to be the one who identifies the players and who comes in. And this is, again, in contrast with what we talk about at certain other clubs like Manchester United, where now it's directors and chairmen and executives who are bringing in players, or specialist recruitment staff in some cases. Bielsa gets the players that he wants, so he'll know this player. He'll know Raphinha and what he brings to the side. I think they've been looking for a little bit of extra options and pace out wide. So, you know, with Rodrigo up front and Raphinha out wide, it's suddenly starting to look quite impressive for Leeds there. And they've made a good, solid start, haven't they? Well, more than a good, solid start. They've made an excellent start to life in the Premier League. And in a wide open season, you know, they could really make an impact this year. And I think that's a good signing.
Yeah, I have to talk to you about some other teams given the Champions League, which is coming up. I know that Douglas Costa has gone back to Bayern Munich. And speaking of Bayern Munich, I nearly fell off my chair. It's a good thing it's a big chair when I saw one Cameroon international, Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, Bayern Munich. Tell me about those two now, Simon.
Yeah, I think the big signing for Bayern actually is Bouna Sarr, who they brought in from Olympique Marseille, right back. That was, if you remember in the Champions League, when we were doing those pre-game shows, we were debating who was going to be playing at right back quite often. Kimmich was playing there sometimes, and then in midfield.
Pavard.
Yeah, Pavard as well. Yeah, and they've identified that position as one they wanted to strengthen. And Bouna Sarr was going to be in the Champions League with Marseille this season. He's been a consistent performer in a good league, so that looks like a sensible sign. They don't get many wrong, do they, Bayern Munich? They're one of those clubs who, when they go out and sign players, you don't think of too many flops that Bayern Munich have had over the years. One or two exceptions, but they tend to get things right. So, you know, that looks like a sensible signing. And Douglas Costa comes in and gives them a bit of even more option in those wide areas. They've got quite a few players for those positions, but the way they play, they put a lot of strain on those players. So he was very successful at Bayern, a very popular player, so the Bayern fans will be delighted to see him back.
Yeah, and I asked you about Choupo-Moting because I always thought that analysing the Bayern Munich squad, I felt that centre forward was the only player. Not that they had weaknesses, because if Lewandowski is not available, you could always ask Muller to play point, but they didn't have covering numbers, and I guess he's just there. If you're winning 5-0 and it's 70 minutes, 75 minutes on the clock, you can always ask Lewandowski to take a breather and put Choupo-Moting on to see out the game.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, his, though, isn't it, really? You know, to go from Stoke City, relegation from the Premier League with Stoke City, and then end up playing for Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich. I mean, it's remarkable. He wasn't going to get many minutes this year for PSG, and he ends up at Bayern. So, you know, he's a player who we've seen really make an impact from the bench several times, though, haven't we? And that actually counts. Players like that can count up for a lot of points at the end of the season. Someone comes on with 20 minutes to go and gets a goal, and he's that kind of player. Yeah.
One more to ask you about outside of England, Simon. Italy, I'm wondering about Juventus' Champions League ambitions this year, because Chiesa is the man that they have turned to. They've taken him onto the books. I was a huge fan of his father. I don't think he's as good as Federico is. But do you see that as a positive transfer, or you think that's not going to really take Juventus to the level they want to go?
I wonder if he's going to get in the team. I mean, I know they've played 50 million euros, but you look at the options they've got in attack, you know, and you think, well, they were waiting to get Douglas Costa out before they brought him in. Is he going to be in the same position as Douglas Costa was, you know, struggling to get in the starting lineup? I like him. He's a nice player. I totally agree with you. His father was a fantastic player, Enrico Palmer, and one of those players who, there were so many good players in Italy at that time that, you know, he often got a little bit overlooked by people when they talked about the great players of Serie A at that time. But he really was an absolute quality footballer. And his son, isn't quite living up to that. But he's a very talented player. United were looking at him. A few clubs in England had looked at Federico Chiesa, but he's gone to Juventus. And, the one thing there as well, players who move from Fiorentina to Juventus, there is a rivalry there, even though they're not neighbouring cities. There is a rivalry there going back to when Roberto Baggio left Fiorentina, and went to Juventus. There were almost riots in Florence after that. I don't think that'll be the case this time, but he'll get a hostile reception when he returns to Florence, that's for sure.
Yeah, last point before we wrap up, Simon, going back to something that was mentioned earlier, I think it was by Mariah at the top. The young Ivorian who's coming over from Atalanta, Amad Diallo, 17 years old. I understood that he was seen at a youth game against Manchester City for Atalanta. The Man United scouts saw him that day, and they've been keeping tabs since. Can you explain for the Manchester United fans why he isn't joining immediately and is waiting until January?
Yeah, he isn't actually an Italian citizen. He's been in Italy for many years, and he's come up through the Italian system. But Italy is a country with a remarkable bureaucracy, and there's not always been the most welcoming to people from African backgrounds, let's put it that way. And he hasn't got Italian citizenship, so he's not an EU citizen. So he has to go through the work permit process, which shouldn't be a problem for somebody who's a professional footballer, but isn't going to be done in 24 hours. So he won't make the deadline, and he'll come in January, United are saying. Very exciting. The reports about him are all exceptional. One for the future, obviously. He's only played 4 or 5 games for Atalanta in Serie A, so the money that they're paying, 20 million up front, I believe, 20 million euros up front, and then another 17 million euros to come with all the appearances and the add-ons that come into these deals these days. But, an exciting sort of player. I mean, you think back to when United have signed players for good money at that sort of age. You're thinking about the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and so on. Big shoes to step into, and I don't want to compare him to Cristiano, but certainly a player that everyone in Italy was impressed with.
There you go. Good job, Simon. It's been a long day, and I know that the last few minutes are going to be, every time I think of the transfer window and it closing, I think of 2 people, Jim White and Harry Redknapp, because there's always some hijinks involving them.
Harry's obviously not directly involved in the game anymore, but Sky brought him out tonight on their channel to sit with Jim White for the last 3 hours. He's been on television as Harry.
Yeah,
telling some great stories.
I saw a promo earlier today with him and Jamie Redknapp in the same segment with Jim hosting, and I was like, yeah, this has to be gold. It's a pity I couldn't watch it. I have to get the rerun. But thank you for your time, Simon, and we'll talk again.
Will do. Cheers. All the best.
Good. So that's the transfer story from around Europe. Manchester United have brought 3 players in. Edinson Cavani, the Uruguay international, former Napoli, former Paris Saint-Germain striker. He was a free agent working on his own, trying to keep fit. They've signed him on a 1-year loan deal with an option to extend. Lance mentioned Chris Smalling earlier. Chris Lance has actually gone on a permanent transfer to Roma for £15 million with another, 50 million euros with another 5 million to come, depending on performances and such. United have also they've bought Amad Diallo, a 17-year-old Ivorian winger from the Ivory Coast who is playing in Italy, has grown up in Italy with his parents, and he's coming over in January. And the 27-year-old left back Alex Telles, who I think by now should be on a plane to Brazil because he has international duty a couple of days from now. So they signed him from Porto for £15 million, and that too will be subject to add-ons. Sergio Romero, the goalkeeper from Argentina, who was second choice behind De Gea last year, but who has now gone on to third choice given the return of Dean Henderson to the Manchester United fold. His wife isn't happy because it's understood that Everton wanted him on loan, and Manchester United said no, and his wife is hopping mad. All right, break time.